Good morning, YouTube. Out here today just trying to make another fishing video. Gonna basically try a little bit of a different thing. We have had some cold fronts move in. It's cooled the water down a good bit, and I'm actually gonna try throwing some topwater this morning. I've actually got a little bit of Overcast, so I'm just gonna start the morning off by covering water and just basically just throwing a buzzbait. So let's see if we can catch some fish, and stay tuned.
Derp, derpity derp derp derp. Derp 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 diddy derp derp derp.
Nope.
Derp derp diddy derp derp derp. Derp derp
Nope.
diddy derp derp derp. Derp 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 derp.
Nope.
Derp 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 derp.
Oh wow, this is a really violent strike. This fish, this is a good one. Yep, this is a really good fish. What?
A catfish? No way.
Oh, a catfish. Really? Quit. Hateful thing. You. Freaking a catfish. This is by far the craziest catch I've ever actually caught on a swim jig. Never thought that I would be able to catch a catfish on a swim jig. Literally, this catfish though hit it like a truck and just pretty much held on. But yeah, this is the catfish that hit it, and it was right in the roof of his mouth. So it's kind of crazy, you know, that these fish, catfish that are like bottom dwellers, will actually hit a bait like that that's moving. I actually thought, honestly, at first it was a big bass, but it's just a big old kitty. So let's just put him back in the water and let him go. Gotta love after you catch a catfish. Look at all those boogers. It's like a bass fisherman's worst nightmare. It's like booger fest. It's disgusting. Look at that. It's like just a big old booger. Oh God. There we go. So we might be on to something, maybe. Seems like might be a pattern possibly with wood. The catfish was on wood. The first bass was on some wood, and this bass was on some wood. And I actually caught this one just pitching. Just basically pitched a jig in there and ended up catching them. So let's just see if we can get anything big this way, and I'll just kind of stick with it. If anything, maybe I'll just catch a whole bunch of fish today. So let's keep getting it. There we go. That's not a bad one. So again, same thing. Just basically pitch this little bluegill swim jig actually up into some grass. There's a little bit of wood mixed into that, like a couple pieces of timber. And look how this fish ate it. That's a pretty good sign that these fish are basically wanting to eat this bait. This fish has got it. It's got a good bit down in its mouth, as you can see. So it's not a monster by any means, but definitely a lot of fun. So it's a really nice healthy bass. He actually has been caught before though, because he actually has a hole for me, and then there's another hole in the top of his mouth. So he's definitely been caught before. Actually, this fishing might just be stupid, because here's my hole. There's my hole there. Then there's this hole, and then there's that hole. So this fish has been caught 3 times maybe. Yeah, he's not that bright. He's a crazy fish. There we go. There's another one. Oh wow, that's an upgrade. So the good news is I'm pretty sure we've established a pattern. This is another fish that actually, the difference is there's a little bit of wood around where this grass was, but for the most part it was kind of just a bunch of, grass. There's very little grass actually in the Occoquan Reservoir. So basically, just finding grass and finding wood, just finding cover for these fish to, kind of back themselves into. It seems like that's what's getting bid, and they kind of just want something thrown in there and for it to hit the bottom, and you just kind of shake it just slightly, and that seems to be generating strikes. So I'm going to keep at it and keep, doing what I'm doing, because obviously I feel like I've figured out somewhat of a pattern. And I'm actually using straight braid, because this is actually my swim jig setup, and I'm just pitching a swim jig in there, and it's got like a little bit of a crawl bait to it, and I'm just kind of like popping it up just a little bit and just shaking my jig like crazy, and they'll come up and they'll grab a hold of it, and you feel them kind of like mouthing it, where they're just kind of like pecking at it, and then they'll just grab a hold of it and just start running with it. So they definitely want to eat, and so far, I mean, we keep catching fish, and they keep getting a little bit bigger. So hopefully we can catch something that's actually really big. So this is the next one that I got. This is probably at least another 14, 15 inch fish. I can just throw it on the measuring board. Why not? Yep, so this one. Whoa, they're such feisty fish. Wet. Yep, so this one is 15 and a half. Not too bad of a fish. It's a 15 and a half inch fish, and not too bad actually. I'm pretty happy with it. I definitely love the pitch and flip bite, so if this continues, that's awesome. That one wanted to give a little bit of a show for us. There we go. That poor fella. Yeah, he just kind of came up, and as you can see, they definitely just want to eat this bait. Right in the roof of the mouth. Perfect hook set. So maybe I might establish a new pattern. Here's another fish, and it looks like there's just a lot of fish actually on the outer edges of this grass that's back here, which, hey, I don't mind that. I mean, I'll target and flip grass all day. So let's just keep on getting it. I'm pretty sure this is probably a 12-incher. It isn't that big, but hey, it's still a lot of fun to catch them. Let's get right back to it. Has to be a bass right in here. Yep. I knew there would be. And he absolutely choked it. That is awesome. I called that fish. As you can see, that jig is way in his mouth. And it was just the swim jig. I just pitched it in there. I had a feeling that there was going to be a bass there. 15 1/4. I'll go ahead and explain why that bass was actually there. So you can actually see the dock right over here. See how there's current on the other side, and then there's some current coming from this side. Well, that little underlip right there, he can actually, it provides him with shade. It also protects him from the wind, and basically just lets him ambush stuff as it comes by. So that's the reason that bass was there. So sometimes there can be two in the same spot, because they're known to share the same area sometimes. So throw it back in there and see if we get another one. Sometimes getting the yellow one can be a pain in the butt. You gotta try to provoke them.
Nope.
Okay, so I think that's going to wrap up today's video. So just as a recap, I thought I had something kind of figured out as far as, you know, maybe a pattern or something, but I would say after the wind kind of started blowing a little bit, it seemed like the bite just kind of that pattern basically just went away, and sometimes that can happen. I tried to establish a new pattern. That's the reason I tied on that spinnerbait, because I still had been seeing like some fish, you know, kind of chasing bait around. But I only caught one on that spinnerbait, and that was about it. So, and then after that one, that was over here at this dock. You know, that was just kind of one of those things that I pulled up and I thought for a second, and you know, figured there should be a fish there, and sure enough, there wasn't actually a fish there. It was just kind of like a little bit of basic bass fishing 101. It had shade, it protected it from the wind, and it allowed it to ambush something if it ended up swimming by. So typically bass, especially largemouth bass, they're extremely lazy. If they can, you know, kind of hide behind like a rock or maybe a limb, or, you know, something to kind of shield them from, you know, fighting current, then they'll definitely do that. So that's the reason, you know, bass will do that. And also, you know, typically in the summertime, I always look for like shade in the summertime, because typically that water temperature is going to be just a little bit cooler. And it also gives bass protection for their eyes, because they actually do not have eyelids. So they don't want to be out there, you know, and the sun just beating down on them, and you know, basically hurting our eyes. If you like today's video, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button below. And until next time.